In this video, we're examining how Interpol hunts Dexter Morgan after he flees the United States. This assumes an alternate scenario where Dexter is identified as the Bay Harbor Butcher, charged under US law, and flees before arrest. We'll look at fugitive behavior patterns, Interpol's Red Notice system, international law enforcement coordination, and the investigative steps from flight to capture. Dexter Morgan gets a critical 24 to 72 hour window after fleeing Miami before Interpol's Red Notice system activates, and what he does during this window decides whether he evades capture for months or years. When a suspect in a federal investigation flees internationally, the FBI coordinates with Interpol's National Center Bureau in Washington, D.C. According to Interpol's published procedures, a Red Notice request can be processed within 24 hours of a formal request from a member country's law enforcement agency. Interpol issued 13,048 Red Notices in 2019 alone. These notices function as international arrest warrants distributed to all 195 member countries. Border control systems, airport security databases, and law enforcement agencies worldwide receive instant updates when Red Notices are issued. U.S. Customs and Border Protection maintains exit records through the Automated Passport Control System and Airline Passenger Manifest. Modern passport systems include RFID chips containing biometric data scanned at international borders and checked against databases including Interpol's Stolen and Lost Travel Documents database, which processed over 1.7 billion searches in 2019. Dexter understands forensic procedures and investigation timelines better than most criminals. In Season 1, he carefully researched the ice truck killer's patterns and stayed one step ahead of the investigation. In Season 4, he managed to maintain his normal life while hunting Trinity. He knows exactly how investigations progress because he's been part of them for years. His passport is under his real name because he never had reason to build a false identity while living his double life in Miami. His departure leaves a clear electronic trail in US customs systems. Once authorities confirmed he left the country, the Interpol National Central Bureau gets notified. Professional fugitives use the initial escape to reach their destination, establish shelter, and destroy evidence of their route. They avoid commercial flights after departure because airport security systems scan passports against Interpol's databases in real time. In Season 5, when he helped Lumen escape suspicion, he demonstrated knowledge of how evidence trails work and how to avoid them. The Interpol I-24/7 Secure Global Police Communication Systems connects law enforcement in all 195 member countries, allowing instant database queries on wanted persons, stolen documents, and criminal records. Dexter has 24 to 72 hours before a Red Notice gets issued, depending on how quickly authorities connect his disappearance to the investigation. Modern border security systems have largely eliminated undetected international travel for documented individuals. Before we continue, if you're finding this breakdown fascinating, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss on our next deep dive. Getting out of the country is only step one. The real challenge starts when you're in a foreign country with limited resources, no legal identity, and the world's largest police organization actively searching for you. International fugitives follow documented survival patterns including establishing fake identities, avoiding digital footprints, working cash-only jobs, and embedding in communities with weak law enforcement ties, though Dexter's specific skills and limitations present unique advantages and vulnerabilities. Research from the U.S. Marshal Service, which captures approximately 75% of fugitives it pursues internationally, showed that fugitives follow remarkably consistent patterns. A 2015 study published in the Journal of Criminal Justice analyzing 847 fugitives found that the most fugitives are captured within the first 3 months of flight, with the probability of capture declining after the first year. Successful long-term fugitives who evaded capture for 5 years or more shared specific characteristics. They established legitimate appearing identities, maintained minimal contact with previous associates, worked in cash-based industries, and avoided behavior that brings law enforcement attention. Whitey Bulger fled in 1994 and evaded capture for 16 years by settling in Santa Monica, California under the aliases Charlie and Carol Gasco. He and his girlfriend Catherine Grieg lived quietly, paid rent in cash, avoided forming close friendships, and stayed away from situations requiring official identification. They were captured only after the FBI launched a media campaign targeting their age progress photographs. Matteo Messina Denario, a Sicilian mafia boss, evaded capture for 30 years despite an active Red Notice because he never left his home region of Sicily and had extensive local support networks. Dexter needs to establish a functional identity immediately upon arrival. Throughout the series, we've never seen him build false identities for himself. In Season 8, specifically in the episode Are We There Yet?, when Hannah McKay needed to disappear, Dexter helped her obtain a fake passport through connections in Miami's criminal underworld. He knows these resources exist and can use them. Modern passports contain RFID chips with encrypted biometric information that's difficult to forge convincingly. Dexter's best option is stealing or purchasing a genuine passport from someone who resembles him, then altering the photograph, a technique we see criminals attempt in Season 6. He picks a country with specific characteristics, limited extradition treaties with the United States, large English-speaking expatriate communities where an American doesn't stand out, cash-based economies, and weak integration with Interpol's databases. Countries in Central America, Southeast Asia, and parts of Eastern Europe fit these criteria. Research on fugitive behavior shows they gravitate towards tourist areas where transient populations are normal, places like Playa del Carmen in Mexico, Phnom Penh in Cambodia, or Chiang Mai in Thailand host thousands of foreign residents and tourists. These locations offer cash-based rental markets, informal employment in bars or dive shops, and communities that don't ask questions. Dexter has specific skills that help him survive. He's methodical, patient, and capable of controlling his urges when necessary. In Season 4, he maintained a normal family life with Rita and the kids while hunting Trinity. In Season 8, when he faked his death and became a lumberjack in Oregon, he showed he can abandon his old life entirely and start fresh. His biggest advantage is his ability to blend in and appear completely normal. Throughout 8 seasons, he fooled everyone except Dokes and eventually Deborah. Lundy's profile in Season 2 was accurate, forensically aware, likely in law enforcement, highly organized, yet even with Dexter sitting in briefings, Lundy never suspected him specifically. His biggest vulnerability is emotional attachment. In Season 8, his decision to fake his death was motivated by protecting Hannah and Harrison, not pure self-preservation. If he fled internationally, his need to check on Harrison or contact Deborah could expose his location. Fugitives get caught when they reach out to family, and Dexter has proven throughout the series that he takes enormous risks for the people he cares about. Another vulnerability is his dark passenger. While Dexter demonstrated in Season 8 that he could suppress his need to kill, the urge never truly disappeared. If he killed someone in his host country using his signature method, plastic wrap, sedation with M99, dismemberment, that pattern flags in Interpol systems if local police entered the case. Dexter can potentially establish a low-profile existence in a country with weak law enforcement ties. His ability to appear normal gives him months to years of freedom before capture mechanisms catch up. His emotional attachments and compulsion to kill are his greatest risk of exposure. Dexter's on the run, living under a new identity in a foreign country. He's avoided the initial dragnet. How does Interpol begin narrowing down where a fugitive might be hiding when they could be anywhere on the planet? Interpol's Red Notice system builds a global dragnet that makes every border crossing, traffic stop, and identity check a potential capture point, and Dexter's specific profile generates particular attention within the system. Interpol's Red Notice is the closest instrument to an international arrest warrant in use today. Red Notices are issued for fugitives wanted for prosecution or to serve a sentence. A Red Notice is a request to law enforcement worldwide to locate and provisionally arrest a person pending extradition, surrender, or similar legal action. As of 2020, Interpol maintained approximately 66,000 valid Red Notices. Border control authorities, immigration officials, and police departments can access the database through the I-24/7 system. Interpol's General Secretariat in Lyon, France, coordinates all Red Notice activities. According to Interpol's public reports, Red Notices resulted in over 10,000 arrests in 2019 alone. The Red Notice builds multiple pressure points. Every time Dexter crosses an international border, his passport gets scanned and checked. Every time he encounters local police, a routine identity check can flag him. Every time he attempts to access services requiring official documentation, the verification process can expose him. Miami Metro has extensive photographic records of Dexter, employee ID photos, crime scene photographs where he appears in the background, social media posts from department events. In Season 2, we see dozens of photos of Miami Metro staff on the walls and in files. His fingerprints are already in the system from his employment background check. In Season 7, when Hannah was being hunted, we saw how quickly law enforcement can distribute photographs and descriptions across jurisdictions. Nations with advanced border security infrastructure and strong law enforcement ties with Interpol are high-risk areas. Countries like Canada, Australia, United Kingdom, Japan, and most European Union nations maintain sophisticated database integration with Interpol systems. Countries with limited resources, political instability, or weak ties to international law enforcement are lower risk areas. The Red Notice also opens the possibility of public appeals. A serial killer who murdered dozens of people and worked as a forensic analyst for a major police department absolutely qualifies as high priority. These public red notices appear on Interpol's website and can be distributed to media outlets worldwide, increasing the chances of public recognition and tips. The Bay Harbor Butcher case was major news in Miami. In Season 2, we see extensive media coverage of the bodies washing ashore. If authorities identified Dexter as the killer, his face would be on every news channel. International coverage of an American police department employee being the Bay Harbor Butcher would be massive. The red notice transforms Dexter from a fugitive in one country to a wanted person in 195 countries simultaneously. The notice is active within 48 to 72 hours of his flight being confirmed. Every interaction with official systems carries capture risk, forcing him to avoid situations requiring identification and limiting his movement between countries. Now drop a comment below. Where do you think Dexter would run to if he fled the country? What location would give him the best chances of staying hidden? Let me know. The red notice is circulating. Border agents worldwide have Dexter's photograph and biometric data. Law enforcement in 195 countries can access his file with a single database query. Interpol deploys specialized fugitive tracking techniques including financial surveillance, travel pattern analysis, and intelligence agency collaboration, with Dexter's specific behavior patterns and known associates opening trackable vulnerabilities. Interpol's Fugitive Investigative Support Unit, based at the General Secretariat in Lyon, France, provides operational support for tracking high-priority fugitives. The unit maintains specialized databases tracking fugitive sightings, travel patterns, known associates, and financial activities. Modern fugitive investigations rely heavily on financial surveillance. The Financial Action Task Force maintains international standards for combating money laundering and terrorist financing. When a fugitive accesses money, they leave a trail. ATM withdrawals, wire transfers, currency exchanges, and large cash transactions all generate records that can be tracked. Travel pattern analysis is another critical tool. Interpol maintains databases of airline passenger manifests, hotel registrations, and border crossing records from participating nations. Dexter's financial profile from Miami Metro gets analyzed thoroughly. As a blood spatter analyst, he earned a decent salary. In Season 4, we see him budgeting for Rita's wedding and discussing finances with her. He wasn't wealthy, meaning that he couldn't have massive offshore accounts without raising red flags during his years of employment background checks. Any international withdrawal or transaction using his real accounts flag immediately. He needs to access money somehow, and each method opens risk. His known associates become surveillance targets. Deborah is his sister and closest relationship. In Season 8, we see how devastated she is by discovering his secret. If he fled as the Bay Harbor Butcher, authorities would monitor her phone, email, and financial records, waiting for him to make contact. The same goes for Hannah McKay. In Season 8, Dexter risked everything to help Hannah flee to Argentina. His behavioral patterns from the show reveal other vulnerabilities. Dexter is a creature of habit. He frequented the same donut shop in Miami. He had his favorite spots for disposing of bodies. He used the same boat, the Slice of Life. Behavioral analysts working for Interpol study these patterns to predict where fugitives might go. His Dark Passenger opens a unique tracking vulnerability. If Dexter can't suppress his need to kill and someone dies in a foreign country with his exact signature, that flags immediately. In Season 6, the Doomsday Killer theatrical murders were identified as a pattern quickly because of their distinct signature. Dexter's signature is just as distinct. Interpol coordinates with the CIA and NSA for signals intelligence if Dexter is considered a high-priority target. These agencies monitor international communications and can track phone usage, email accounts, and internet activity. In Season 5, we see Dexter research targets online, use his computer at work, and leave digital footprints. If he accesses any of his old email accounts, checks on news about Harrison, or researches anything related to his past life, that opens signals intelligence opportunities. The investigation phase lasts anywhere from weeks to years depending on Dexter's resources, discipline, and choice of destination. His emotional attachments to Deborah and Harrison are the highest risk of exposure through monitored communications. His compulsion to kill opens pattern recognition risk if he can't suppress the Dark Passenger. All these tracking systems, databases, and international networks exist for one purpose: the moment when law enforcement finally closes in. Interpol coordinates arrests through member country law enforcement, but cannot make arrests directly, meaning capture success depends entirely on the host nation's willingness and ability to detain the fugitive and approve extradition to the United States. Interpol is not a law enforcement agency in the traditional sense. Interpol officers do not have arrest powers in any country. When a fugitive is located, local law enforcement in the host country conducts the actual arrest. The legal mechanism for returning fugitives to the United States is extradition. Extradition treaties are bilateral agreements between countries establishing the legal framework for transferring criminal suspects. The United States maintains extradition treaties with over 100 countries, though the terms differ substantially. Countries without extradition treaties with the United States include Russia, China, North Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Cuba, and several Middle Eastern and African nations. If Dexter fled to one of these countries, extradition becomes impossible through legal channels. Even with an extradition treaty, the process is complex and slow. The requesting country must provide evidence supporting the charges, demonstrate that the crime is covered under the treaty's terms, and prove the person detained is actually the wanted fugitive. Roman Polanski fled to France in 1978 to avoid sentencing for unlawful sex with a minor. Despite an active arrest warrant and Interpol red notice, France has refused to extradite him to the United States for over 4 decades because French law prohibits extraditing French citizens. If Dexter gets located in a country without an extradition treaty, the arrest means nothing unless he can be lured or transported to a country with better relations. The evidence against Dexter in this scenario is substantial. The 18 bodies from Season 2 that the divers found, forensic evidence linking the kills to the same perpetrator, behavioral analysis from FBI profiler Lundy pointing to someone in law enforcement with forensic knowledge, and potentially the blood slide collection if it was discovered. Florida has the death penalty. Some countries refuse extradition if the fugitive faces potential execution. European nations generally won't extradite to the United States in death penalty cases without assurance that execution won't be pursued. In Season 2, the Bay Harbor Butcher case was treated as one of the most serious serial murder investigations in Miami history. How long extradition takes differs drastically. Simple cases with helpful countries and clear evidence can resolve in weeks. Complex cases with legal challenges can take months or years. The capture mechanism is Interpol's biggest limitation. The organization can locate fugitives with impressive speed when member countries actually help. The actual arrest and extradition can add months to years depending on the host country's legal system and political willingness to act. Total time from red notice issuance to Dexter being in US custody ranges from 1 month in ideal circumstances to never if he chooses his destination strategically. Now let's put all these pieces together, from the moment Dexter boards that flight out of Miami to the moment the US Marshals walk him off a plane in handcuffs. Under realistic Interpol procedures and international law enforcement protocols, the complete process from Dexter's flight to his capture ranges from 3 months to 3 years in helpful countries, or indefinitely in non-extraditing nations, with his destination choice and ability to suppress his dark passenger being the critical variables. Let's map the chronological progression across different scenarios. Scenario 1. Dexter flees to a highly cooperative country with strong law enforcement infrastructure and an extradition treaty. From hours 0 to 24, Dexter departs Miami on a commercial flight, passport scan at departure. From hour 24 to 72, Miami Metro or FBI confirms Dexter's disappearance and connects it to the Bay Harbor Butcher investigation. Red notice request is submitted. Hour 72 to hour 96, red notice approved and distributed to all member countries. Week 1 to month 3 is the investigation phase. Financial surveillance activated. Travel pattern analysis begins. Known associates like Deborah Morgan and Hannah McKay would be monitored. From month 3 to month 6 would be arrest and extradition. Local law enforcement makes arrest based on red notice. United States submits extradition requests, and Dexter is transferred to US custody. The total time in this scenario is from 3 to 6 months from flight to being in US custody. Let's dive into scenario 2. Dexter flees to a moderately cooperative country with some law enforcement capacity but slower bureaucratic processes. The investigation phase takes 6 months to a year if Dexter maintains operational security and the host country has limited surveillance infrastructure. His forensic knowledge helps him avoid digital footprints and surveillance cameras. Extradition adds another 6 months to a year due to court delays and legal challenges. So the total time in this scenario is 1 to 2 years from flight to being in US custody. And now, scenario 3. Dexter flees to a non-extraditing country or a nation with minimal US relations. Investigation can potentially locate him if he makes mistakes. His emotional need to check on Harrison or contact Deborah is the highest probability of exposure. In Season 8, we see how much Harrison means to him. That paternal instinct doesn't disappear just because he fled the country. However, arrest and extradition become impossible through legal channels. Dexter can remain free indefinitely unless he travels to a friendlier country. His dark passenger is the wild card. If he kills someone using his signature method, local police enter the case into their databases. If they have any connection to Interpol systems, the pattern matched to the Bay Harbor Butcher flags immediately. So the total time in this scenario is potentially never, or until circumstances change. The critical decision point occurs in those first 24 to 72 hours. Where Dexter chose to flee decides everything that follows. A fugitive who fled to Brazil, which has no extradition treaty with the United States for its own citizens and limited interest in helping with foreign nationals, can potentially remain free for years. A fugitive who fled to Canada or the United Kingdom faces capture within months. Historical data supports these windows. According to U.S. Marshals Service statistics, the median time to capture for an international fugitive in helpful countries is approximately 4 months. For fugitives in non-helpful countries, the median time extends to several years, with many never being captured at all. Dexter's background in forensics and understanding of the investigative procedures helps him evade capture longer than typical fugitives. In Season 2, he stayed ahead of Lundy's investigation by being part of it, understanding exactly what evidence they had and what they were looking for. That same mindset applies to invading Interpol. His biggest advantages are his ability to appear normal and his capacity for patience. In Season 4, he maintained his marriage to Rita, raised the kids, worked his job, and hunted Trinity simultaneously. That compartmentalization serves him well as a fugitive. His biggest disadvantages are his emotional attachments and his dark passenger. He will take enormous risk for Harrison and Deborah. Throughout the series, nearly every close call Dexter faced came from protecting someone he cared about or from his compulsion to kill. In Season 7, he risked exposure to save Hannah. In Season 8, he abandoned his carefully constructed life to protect Harrison. High-profile fugitives receive more attention, more resources, and more persistent investigation than typical wanted persons. The Red Notice remains active indefinitely. Every year that passes brings new opportunities for detection through facial recognition improvements, database expansions, and investigation techniques. The Red Notice activation comes in 24 to 72 hours. Investigation and location takes 3 months to 1 year depending on the destination and fugitive discipline. There will be arrest and extradition in 1 month to 1 year depending on host countries' willingness to help. The total process from flight to US custody ranges from 3 months in optimal capture scenarios to 3 years in difficult scenarios to indefinitely in non-extraditing nations. Dexter's destination choice in those critical first hours is the single most important factor deciding whether he spends months or decades as a free man. His ability to suppress his dark passenger and resist contacting loved ones decide whether he maintains that freedom or opens the exposure that leads to his capture. From boarding that flight out of Miami to the moment federal agents finally close the cell door, Dexter Morgan's freedom depends almost entirely on one decision: where he chooses to run. Choose wrong, and Interpol's global network has him back in the United States within months. Choose right, and he can disappear into a country where American law can't reach, turning a manhunt into a waiting game that lasts years or even the rest of his life. If you enjoyed this breakdown analyzing exactly how Interpol would hunt down Dexter Morgan across international borders, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. And check out our previous video breaking down how long would it take the FBI to catch Dexter.